Alrighty, welcome to. Here we go. We are ready to go. Welcome to Speaking the Truth in Sports. We got your host Tremaine, and you got your other co-host Sean Vogler. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm good. I'm ready to get this journey started with the podcast.
Yeah, we're coming to you new on January 7th, 2024. Um, I have birthday coming up in a week. And there's a chance we might do our second show in person. Sean don't know about this yet, but I have a very close friend, very close friend who just lost his father. So I'll be making a trip to Indianapolis in the next week or so. So there's a high chance that the next show we do will be in person, combined together. For those of you that don't know, I currently live in Salt Lake, Utah, but we both come from the great city or the great metro area of Indianapolis, Indiana. But obviously, Sean's from Greenwood, which is south of Indianapolis, for you all to know. But I'm here in Salt Lake City. Sean and I met at Indiana State University. We'll talk more about ourselves as time goes on, as we build our audience. But for now, it's important to know that we're here, and I think that it's going to be a very key and important thing to get to know each other throughout. So any comments, Sean, before we get started?
Oh no, just excited to get started. Looking forward to second episode live and in person.
Yeah, that it just depends on the timing. It could be a third if they wait a couple weeks to do the funeral, but there should be an episode done in person together, and that'll be really dope to do. So, I mean, that was just news that came today because I just found out about the passing early this morning. Um, so we had two lead stories. I mean, obviously, this is going to be heavy on like the major sports, but we'll throw in some sports that aren't covered as much as well. And then obviously we have the lens of the Midwest first on out. So we'll see what happens here. And we want to give people a deeper a deeper look into sports that's beyond the basics, but not the X's and O's. So we have our lead story. We're both big time Indiana Hoosier fans. So we got to lead off the story. Four turnovers yesterday in the victory against Ohio State. Sean, what's your take on that game?
It was a close game. Ohio State's is tough, but it was nice to see them limit the turnovers after earlier in the week. Nebraska committing like what 16 to 18 turnovers, and holding Ohio State to 28% shooting in the second half. That's
Yeah,
what won the game, right? That's what won the game right there. I mean, you rode your horses and Malik Renew. Welcome back, Xavier Johnson. Nice to see you back. But let me give a shout out to CJ Gunn. Uh, you know, shooting that ball well, but more importantly, playing tough defense when as Coach Woodson went to 3 guard lineup.
yeah, and I mean that's going to have to happen a lot more throughout the season because the reality of the situation is that unless you're placing Purdue or other teams that have two bigs a lot in the Big Ten, you're going to have to go with those three guards and a small forward at that four position, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's just the way the game is played now. They'll probably start games, and of course, with their size, with Malik Renew, with Khalil Ware, but Mackenzie Mbako has that versatility. He can play that 3, that 4, need be. Also, very good shooting, but depending upon what the matchups are with Xavier Johnson and Trey Galloway, C.J. Gunn, maybe of Caleb Banks, maybe a Gabe Cups because he's a pretty good defender. He just only happens to be 6 foot tall. That's the only thing against him. So
Yeah, and before we kind of move on against the Hoosiers got two games coming up before our next podcast. On Wednesday, they're at home to Penn State, which We got to give them some of their medicine back from the L's we caught last season, and then we go on the road for a very, very, very tough game at Iowa. Oh, that's the women's team. Sorry, I like
Um,
got
I,
lost
I
for
was
a
gonna
second.
say they play on the
No, no,
road
no, at
Rutgers,
Rutgers. So that's even tougher than Penn State at Rutgers. I don't know the
and
last
then
time we won at Rutgers on
and
the
then
ninth.
home to Minnesota on next weekend. So that's before Purdue comes in town.
That's before Purdue comes in town. There's a chance that we might be watching that game together. There's a chance. I don't
I,
know.
I will be, although I will actually be out at the Assembly Hall for that game.
Oh, that's even better. That is even better. So that's what's coming up for the men's basketball team. Obviously, I told you the women's schedule too, which we'll get to the women's basketball team a little bit later in the show. So the next story that we have is what happened in the Colts game last night on 4th and 5? Something about a wide open receiver dropping the ball. Someone I ain't ever heard of in life. What
I
happened?
mean, it was so Colts got the ball back with about 4.5 minutes to go, and they just rode Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, for those who don't know, is probably one of the top 5 running backs in the league. They
Right,
just rode him, rode him, rode him. 4th and 1, you're within the red zone. A touchdown and extra point wins the game because the prior drive, the Texans missed the extra point.
right.
On 4th and 1, they take Jonathan Taylor out, and this is nothing against Mike Goodson. Mike Goodson, he's a good young player.
That who that is? Where he go to college? Who is he?
He went to Iowa. He was a
Iowa.
he was a
I,
running back at Iowa, and he's a good young player, but he's a backup.
hold
Like
on.
I was
Iowa, who scores 10 points a game? Iowa.
3 yards in the cloud dust. I mean, he's probably averaging 150 yards a game or something, but that's their offense from like the 90s.
Right.
But and there's nothing against him, but I'm wondering why are you taking Jonathan Taylor out? I mean, it was a good play call, but it was like you ride your horses. Like to me, I understand throwing it, but if Jonathan Taylor's what got you there, you lean on him and you expect him to get that yard and more, hopefully.
Exactly. And that's important because it is important because I think that like what all this comes down to is legit putting the ball in your best player's hand. And because you didn't, you're going home instead of going to the playoffs. But this is a better season than we all expected. Just try to give some things away. This ended up being the game to win the division. The division was on the line because Jacksonville lost today to the Tennessee Titans. There was some other things around the NFL. The Cincinnati Bengals made sure that the entire AFC North had a winning season by destroying the Browns today. Lions beat the Vikings to make sure that they can keep their self stand pat. Bill Belichick, what's going on with Bill Belichick? They lost 17-3 to the Jets. Who playing quarterback for the Jets? I don't even know. Let me look at it real quick. But tell me about
You
that
know
game.
who it is. It's Zach Wilson.
Nah, he injured. It was Trevor
He came
Simeon.
back. He
Tre-
oh
Tre-
Simeon? Okay.
Simeon played today for the New York, and then Bailey Zapp. I still don't know who Bailey Zapp is, but I mean, I
I
obviously I
mean,
know the name, but
I'm not a Jets fan, but Brees Hall just put the whole team on his back and say, "Hey guys, I got you. Just give me the ball 40 times. We good."
yeah, I mean, and right now we got the Cowboys over the Commanders. They're gonna win the division and they're gonna get the 2 seed because Philly's getting waxed by the New York Football Giants. The New York Football Giants played this way the whole season. They'd be in the playoffs. The 49ers are beating the Rams. They're probably not playing anyone important, and neither is the Rams, probably. The Raiders are beating the Broncos in a useless game. The Chiefs are beating the Chargers. That's just a useless division at this point because Kansas City's locked into the 3 seed. The Bears, are losing to the Packers. Jordan Love has been a good spark this season. And then the Seahawks and the Cardinals are going at it. Seahawks, like the phone is on the line. If you lose this game, you ain't going to the playoffs, Seattle.
Nope. I mean, especially with how Green Bay's playing, you got to win and get in.
And then tonight, to end the season, Bills, Dolphins for the AFC East crown. Who you got tonight? Since that game ain't started yet.
I'm going Buffalo.
You
Buffalo is the hottest team in football right now. They were 500. People are like, they looked at the schedule in front of them. They're like, oh, there's no way they're going to win all these games. Well, here we are, on with a chance to win the AFC crown. And honestly, to me, I think that the Buffalo Bills are the most dangerous team in the playoffs. Like, you do not want to play them. The way Josh Allen playing, the way they're playing.
yeah.
Plus, like Buffalo's beat. Oh, I mean, Miami's beat one team over 500 all year, and that was Dallas, and that was a home game.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna get the win either tonight, and it'd probably be for their best interest because if the Dolphins beat the Bills, they get to face them again next week. But if the Dolphins lose against the Bills, they got to go on the road to Kansas City. Tyreek, Reek the Freaks, going back to KC next week if they lose, and if there's a tie, the Dolphins wins the division and they'll host Pittsburgh, who got into the playoffs last night by beating the Baltimore Ravens and their backups last night.
Should be a good playoffs. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're going to move on because that's enough NFL talk. One of the biggest things that's going to be happening tomorrow night is what, Sean? What's happening tomorrow night?
The national championship game
in football. Right now, the game probably ended. The FCS championship occurred. I'm going to go and see who won, but let's talk about the other game tonight. Well, actually, South Dakota State won 23-3 against Montana. Shout out to the Missouri Valley Football Conference where Indiana State plays football at. But let's go ahead and talk about Washington at Michigan or against Michigan.
My pick is Michigan. I picked Michigan beginning of the year. I'm picking them to finish the year. I mean, Washington has a very good offense, but they haven't had as much success stopping people defensively. Plus, like, Michigan's defense gets after you. They put pressure. And Michael Penix has played well this year, but he hasn't gone up against a defense like this all year. Plus, like, Michigan's going to run the ball and then do some play action. Don't underestimate J.J. McCarthy. The only reason people don't talk about J.J. McCarthy as, like, as a Heisman candidate is because he plays for Michigan. They run the ball so much. That guy is a gamer. He will, we saw what he did a week ago against Alabama on that drive to tie the game and then win it.
Yeah, and we're going to have to keep track of this for the next podcast because I'm telling you right now, I'm going against you. We going with the Dogs, Washington, Michael Penix, who should have been Heisman Trophy winner. First round NFL draft pick, hopefully. Like, that's who I'm going with. I'm going with offense. They have a deadly offense. So I'm going to be going with Washington in that game. I mean, it's going to be close, though, I think. I mean, it's going to be a shootout, but I think.
Oh, yeah. Both teams can score a lot of points.
Right. So, yeah, that's the national championship next year. We're going to be going to the 12-team playoff. A lot of people are already complaining about it. What are your thoughts on the 12-team playoff next year?
I understand them expanding, but if you're going to go to 12, you might as well just go to 16 like every other division at football. Because to me, what I thought they should have stopped at 8, but if you're going to 12, just go to 16.
Yeah, I mean, I think FCS is 24, but I think
they're 16.
They're 16.
Yep, they're 6. That's 16. Every other division of college football is 16-team playoff.
Like a tournament. I thought it was 24, but nevertheless, anyways, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that 16 teams. I think it's perfect just to match up with every other division. But we know that that's the money league. We know that that is the shortcut to the NFL, and that's going to be very golden when it's all said and done. So that's the good news about the college football. And also these mega conferences come in and it's going to be a big deal as well. A lot of money.
Of course, at the end of the day, they can do an athlete all they want. It's about money at the end of the day. You see how much they're making off this playoff. You see, if you look at college basketball, you see the billions they make off of March Madness. Like at the end of the day, it's about money.
Right.
And that's why you see these teams jump into the conference landscape is altered forever, and it's probably still not done.
Right. So we're gonna move on, and this is just how this show goes. We're just gonna move on. Hopefully, one day we can get like caller interactions once we get more fans, and really grow the show from there. But for now, we're just gonna kind of keep it moving. The next story that we're gonna talk about, but moment, Sean, you got something to say?
Oh no, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wanted to make sure I didn't cut you off because my job is keep this thing moving, keep track of time. Try to be between 45 minutes and an hour, not take too much of your time. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the conference season in college basketball. College basketball is a thing that we are big fans of. March Madness is like our Christmas, it's our Super Bowl, it's our time of year. We're excited for 2 months from now when March Madness is approaching. Such a wonderful thing. So, any highlights or insights you have from the NCAA basketball, men's basketball, or women's basketball conference season so far?
I mean, I'll defer to you on the women's call on the women's, but I mean, it's early. It's early. Big Ten's down a little bit this year. Big 12 is competitive. ACC hasn't been too good the past few years, but SEC is definitely competitive. But to me, probably the best team I've seen so far, and like I said, it's early in conference season, is the UConn Huskies. Like, am I saying they're going to repeat? No, but that's a team that can just beat you multiple ways, is versatile offensively and defensively, can beat you multiple ways.
Right, right. I mean, I got obviously one for men's, one for women's, but the women's, well, actually, I got a couple for the women's. The first one for the women's, Elizabeth Kitley, 6'6", big, hit a game winner pretty much off of like a catch and tip situation to win 63-62 today against NC State. Two both prominent teams. They've been one seeds in the NCAA tournament in the past. So that was a good ACC matchup in women's basketball. But the team I'm most excited to see in this conference season is see dominate out west in the Pac-12 because there's a lot of competitive teams. Utah's competitive, UCLA's competitive, Arizona's always competitive. There's just a lot of good teams out west, but Stanford, I'm really excited to see what they can do, to see if they can challenge South Carolina, who all they do is win. So that's something I want to keep in mind is Stanford behind, Cameron Brink, who will probably be the number 2 overall draft pick, number 3 at the lowest, which we'll talk about that number 1 draft pick a little bit later on in the show. But in the meantime, actually, we're going to talk about that number 1 pick right now before I get back to the men's. The potential number 1 pick, the biggest person that I'm a fan of right now, that Sean's a fan of right now, that does not wear IU uniform, goes by the name of Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark got a triple-double this week. She hit a buzzer beater this week. Just pure awesomeness. She even hit a buzzer beater against IU to beat them last year. Like, she's such an incredible player. What are your thoughts on the future number 1 overall draft pick for the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark?
I mean, she's the best player in college basketball. She can beat you multiple ways. Like, to me, I'm not saying like she is this player, but for the women's side, I will say you watch her play, it's like watching Steph Curry, because as soon as she crosses half court, like, she's in range. But it's like, she's not just a great shooter. I mean, as you saw this week with the triple double, like, she gets her teammates involved. She's versatile. Like, she ain't just shooting 30-foot threes. I mean, clearly she can hit 30-foot threes, but like, she's a best player in women's basketball, and the future number one pick for the Fever, who they'll have a nice thing going there, like with a former number one pick there with Aaliyah Boston. Nice inside out combo.
Yeah, and you got a whole crew there. Melissa Smith and all of them. Like Fever are going to be really good in the coming years. But obviously, the other person we want to throw in that top three, along with Cameron Brink and Caitlin Clark, is also Paige Buckets. Her name is Paige Buckers, but we call her Buckets. Don't forget about her. UConn is always a dangerous target when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So, for the women's, obviously the men's this year too, because they're both hot at the top. So, I don't have anything to add about Caitlin Clark. That's just Sean explained it all. But to get to the men's conference season, one of the biggest things that I want to look at is that they're in the Missouri Valley Conference. And I'm going to talk about these people a lot this season. There is one team that's undefeated because Drake lost today. Sean, remind us of who's the last standing undefeated team in the Missouri Valley Conference.
That would be your Indiana State Sycamores.
Your Indiana State Sycamores. They destroyed Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa beat Kansas in the tournament. Like, they've gotten some big wins in the NCAA tournament in the past, and Indiana State's just taken over.
Right. Well, and they got they've just been scoring on anybody. They've lost like 2 games this year. They lost. Michigan State pulled away. Of course, that was a road game before conference play got started, but they can, it's not. It would be nice for them to finally get back to the tournament. Last time they had been was when my senior year.
Was to me, it was a surprising when they were the 3 seed and got to the title game and won the title and faced Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. It was a treat.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like in Missouri Valley is it's a tough conference. It's very physical, I would say it's a lot like the Big Ten, but if whoever represents Missouri Valley in the tournament, you got to bring it, otherwise you're going to get beat, because that's not going to be an easy matchup in NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but there's a chance there might be 1 or 2 Pac-12 teams, so there might be room for a second Missouri Valley team. Which I want to talk about the tournament real quick. NCAA tournament. I'm gonna look at the calendar. Real quick. I'm a troll when it comes down to this. But I gotta look at the calendar. My calendar says that Selection Sunday is gonna be on March 11th. March 10th of 2023.
So 3 months.
So no, 2 months.
2 months. Yep, 2 months. Yes, thank you,
and
Mike.
3 days away from Selection Sunday, and that's all I'm hearing about. Oh man, this team's gonna miss the tournament. This team's gonna miss the tournament. This team's gonna miss the tournament. I'm gonna tell you right now that we're gonna look at the Big Ten. Big Ten is the perfect example. The Big Ten. Let's see. We're gonna look up Indiana. I'm on my phone right here, getting this research in because it is important. And make sure I click on men's this time. Alrighty, we have men's. Let's look at the standings in the Big Ten. Every team's got a winning record in the conference, but Sean, and I know you don't know this, so I'm gonna have you play a little guessing game. Who do you think is the worst team in the Big Ten? They're the only team that has not gotten a win.
I would say Minnesota's probably the worst team in the Big Ten.
Minnesota got a 2-1 record.
I still would. I think I looked at it yesterday. Michigan, which I beat, on the road, which road games are not easy regardless.
Yeah, Michigan is the worst team in the Big Ten by record. They have a conference win, but the team that is the worst in conference right now is Rutgers. They're 8-6, 0-3.
Oh.
And I think the thing that's hard is about all this is that every team right now would need to add, in the Big Ten especially, and most conferences would need to add anywhere from 5 to 8 losses to their record by now. And we know that 13 losses, 12 in the regular season, is the amount of losses you need to be safe in the NCAA tournament. So right now, if we do 5 to 8 losses for a team like Illinois, let's say they get 8 more losses, that's 11 losses. It seems like Illinois, unless they really struggle, they're going to be in this tournament. Um, IU, let's say that IU loses 8, they're right at 12. That means they're on the bubble. But I think that teams like Rutgers, 6 plus 8, that's 14. There's some trouble for them. Michigan, 9 losses already. We're barely
Right.
in January. They're on
I
thin
mean,
ice.
right. I mean, and it's early.
Of course, it's
It's
early.
certainly early. Like I've heard talk about, oh, this team's in, or oh, hey, let's do bracketology in January and December.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, non-conference is certainly important, but you got to play your conference.
You got to play your conference.
And most conferences will. I mean, a lot of conferences, if we're talking high major, they'll provide you with those opportunity for those quad one wins.
Yeah. I mean, besides Penn State with 7 losses and Michigan with 9 losses, it seems like the other 12 teams in the Big Ten has a real shot of doing some damage in this conference. Minnesota's someone we need to really watch out for, but maybe they're good for real. Also, Ohio State got off to a fire start last season and they fell to the ground, didn't even have a winning record. So yeah, those are things to really factor in. It, it's interesting, like, starting off this season in college basketball. And I think it's a good time for I want to call the Zach Edey Award. We should award the Zach Edey Award, meaning the best player through November and December, because we know what happened last year. Zach Edey was the best player in college basketball in November and December, and they gave him the award before Trace Jackson Davis became the best basketball player after that. But
oh yeah,
but who's? Oh, go ahead.
No, certainly. I mean, there's just like the past couple of years, there's just been a lot of parity. But yeah, the best player before, because they'll get this whole media narrative. Zach Edey, don't get me wrong, is a heck of a player, but second half of the year, Purdue was a 500 team in conference play.
Yep. So who right now in college basketball is your Zach Edey player of the year, meaning best player between November and December?
I mean, probably the guy who you just named the award for, Zach Edey. I mean, Purdue is the number one team in college basketball right now. Pretty much at any given night, he's going to give you a double-double, probably like 18 to 20 points, probably 10 rebounds.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
what about
Zach Edey is for sure. He's number 4 in the NCAA in scoring at 22 a game. He is, of course, he's actually not in the top 5 in rebounds, which actually surprises me. And he's not in the top 5 in blocks either. So I think that is a very interesting piece that is there for Zach Edey. But, he's scoring. I mean, I had a player of the year, but my player of the year has got some legal trouble right now. So I'm going to pass on that guy. I mean, because, it's just what it is. I think that, like, I think I want to go with, just because I'm not going to pick Zach Edey because, you already picked him. I think my player that I'm going to is Kevin McCullar out of Kansas. I think because it would be TJ Shannon otherwise. And I obviously, if things continue the way it is, Zach Edey's going to win. But, I don't mess with Purdue, so there's always going to be a biasness for me. I'm not a journalist here,
Right. I mean, Kevin McCullar certainly. I mean, Kansas is number 2 team, and I think he's the best player in the team. Hunter Dickinson is certainly a heck of a player, but you see McCullers played a lot of big games in the Big 12, and as he goes is as Candace goes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an important thing for what we're doing in college basketball. And that is an important thing. So we're going to move on from college basketball. We're going to talk for the NBA probably for the next like 10 minutes because there's so much to talk about in the NBA. But before we get to the NBA, we're going to give score updates for anyone that's listening live right now. And some useless games. The Giants are beating the Eagles 24-3. Raiders are beating the Broncos 24-7. The Chiefs got a nice 1 point lead over the Chargers 10-9. Packers 17-9 over the Bears. I just remember the NFC Championship game when the Bears were crying that the Packers were beating them. Packers are well on their way to being in the playoffs because, especially if the Seahawks lose, because the Cardinals is tied with them at 13 and they have the ball. 49ers are beating the Rams in the most useless game ever. And then the Cowboys are and I'm gonna say this respectfully, they're putting the belt to ass against the Commanders 35-10. That's like the Saints did to the Falcons earlier today. I was like, that is legit belt to ass right there. But I think that is your NFL update, and we'll be moving on from football and college basketball to the NBA. But before we get to the NBA, any last words, Sean, on anything we talked about so far?
Oh no, go ahead. Let's move. Keep it moving.
All right, man. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 3. We got 3 major topics, and we need to talk about all 3 of them. Pick a number between 1 and 3.
2.
2. Warriors come out to play. So we're gonna talk about the Warriors first. The Golden State Warriors, and this is just really hard because like I really want to break down some things to everyone that is watching. Um, Klay Thompson is averaging 17 points a game. He has started in every game, except for one. And he's shooting 42% from the field, 38% from three. It's not really that bad. And he's shooting 14 shots a game, which is below what he normally has shot. And then you have Jonathan Kuminga on 9 shots a game, shooting 51%. He's averaging 13 points a game. Andrew Wiggins, who's played a bench role the last 10 games, is averaging 12.2 points a game. Dario Saric's averaging 11 a game. Obviously, Steph Curry, amazing, tremendous, 28 points a game. They average 117 points as a team. So I got a question for you, Sean. Why in the hell is the Golden State Warriors a game under 500?
Good question. I mean, of course, you've had the stuff going on with Draymond, which has played a factor in it. But honestly, I think that's actually been better for him because Warriors have had to play younger guys. They've had to play Jonathan Kuminga. They've had to play Moses Moon. They've had to play Trace Jackson Davis. Well, partly that because they don't have any other size, but they've had to play. Who was that first round draft pick? Brandon Poldesky. Yep. They've had to play him, which honestly, because they've had no one else. Steph and Klay can't do it, and they've had to get more creative. But they've got to make a move before this deadline in February.
But they ain't.
I don't know about that.
It was reported today they ain't trying to make a move because they ain't trying to get rid of Kuminga, even though it's been rumors that Kuminga don't want to mess with Steve Kerr no more. Now, I ain't out here trying to spread rumors. I'm a nobody in this game. I'm just a regular dude out here. But the math ain't mathing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they should. Kuminga needs to go somewhere where he's going to play, which probably means he would be going to a bad team just so he can play, just so he can grow and develop. But they need to make a move, whether that's a Zach LaVine, whether that's a Pascal Siakam, whether that is someone like that.
Hey, Jordan Poole, ring ring. Jordan Poole on line 1. What up, Jordan? Hey, how's it going? How's it going, Jordan? Man, we're one of the worst teams in the NBA. I went from winning championships and being in the playoffs to being the best team on the second worst team in the NBA besides the embarrassing Detroit Pistons. And Jonathan Kuminga can come join us, or he can come join another one of these bad teams because we ain't got it. And that's exactly the phone call that's going to happen a year from now with Kuminga if he does not want to stand pat in Golden State and just learn, brother. You 21, you 22 years old. Like, you a young man. You got
Right.
time.
I mean, he came into the league when he was like 18, 19 years old. Like, it takes you time to grow and develop. And, and sometimes that's going to be you're not going to play. Like, coach's decision. I mean, Steve Kerr's a heck of a coach, one of the top ones out there, but it's like if you want to, I mean, if he wants out, just let him know and, like, see ya. We'll trade you and Chris Paul's contract and go and get some.
Right. I mean, that's important. I mean, I think that is very important. It's like we go through with the development and then you brought up Chris Paul. Like, I mean, yeah, he's diamond, dishing, but Chris Paul's assists are down to 7.2, 8.9 points per. And he's playing 28 minutes a game. So that's also an interesting thing too for Chris Paul. But I think, you're hitting on some points with, the Golden State Warriors, and I think they are in trouble. Obviously, they get their bleep together, then maybe they can make a run. But I just don't see a championship contender at this point in the season,
Not at this point, but like I said, if they make the right move, like if you go and get, if they want to make one last run, you go and get someone like Pascal Siakam, who's already won a championship, who's versatile offensively and defensively. And honestly, like he's not much of a shooter, but you got shooting out there. He's a guy who's a netter, can create his own shot. Or
right.
if you just want offense, Zach LaVine's out there. Certainly.
Yeah.
I would honestly see if you're going that route, see if you can get Alex Caruso.
Yeah, you ain't getting him.
No, but what I'm saying is you need role players, and he's probably one of the best, like at the guard position, not the wing position, the guard position, the best two-way guys out there because of his defense and what he can do offensively out there. Let's put it this way: the Lakers, they miss him right now.
Yeah, but here's the problem: who you giving up for all those players?
You're probably going to give some picks. You're going to give Kuminga.
You ain't got adequate picks. You gave them.
But you're going to have to give up young. You're going to have to give up young players like a Kuminga, like a Moody, and then Chris Paul's contract to make it work.
Yeah.
The only other salary player they would probably give up is someone like a Wiggins.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. There's one name you've not mentioned yet.
They're not trading Draymond.
No, I'm not talking about him.
They're not trading Clay. Clay may be gone after this year, and they're not trading Steph either.
Listen, Klay Thompson, you mentioned about his contract, right?
He's a free agent after this year.
Right. So if you ain't getting nothing for him, don't you might as well trade him? Obviously, he's still got it where he can score 20, 25 a night. But there's no way you can re-sign him. It ain't worth the money. You're not contending for titles. So you might as well trade him and get something for him, right?
I don't think they will, but what can you get for him knowing that he only has a year left on his deal?
I mean,
unless you train, their best assets are the young guys, and then Chris Paul's contract.
The only thing that you can do is if there's a sign and trade situation like with the Lakers, but that's a tough thing, right? I mean, they ain't re-signing him because he still think he worth $20 million a year, and there's based on his stats, there's no question that he should think that. I mean, Like he's still a good player. I mean, he's not no scrub. I
No,
mean,
he's not a scrub, but yeah, I don't see him gone. They just need to make a move.
yeah, but I just don't know what move it can make for them to be in that situation. But we spent a lot of time on the Warriors, so we're gonna move on. Um, choose wisely, one or three.
One.
One, that's a good thing. We have to end with a positive. We're gonna talk about these Los Angeles Lakers, man. I mean, the Lakers, they are also having to deal with a losing record. They're not even in the play-in right now. They got LeBron James, they got Anthony Davis, and Lord knows who around them. D'Angelo Russell, Alston Reeves, Jared Vanderbilt, and whoever else they got on that roster. JaVale ain't there no more.
Rui Hachimura.
There we go. Rui Hachimura. Whoever else is on that team, I don't even care. They losing and wasted LeBron's talent. And why is this? Why is this happening? Does Darvin Ham need to lose his job?
I wouldn't, but something's got to change. Um, I think part of it is guys don't know what their roles are going to be, but they have had a lot of injuries this year, so that could factor into it. Part of it has to be coaching.
Right.
Which, Darvin Ham, at the end of the day, he's going to play with what he has. If certain players injure, I'm like, okay, next guy stand up, you're going to play. But
right,
they also made sneaky moves in the offseason and have contracts that are attractive to other teams that they're not tied down for long term.
right. Yeah, I mean, and for those of you that don't know who Darvin Ham is, Google it. He's the head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers. Trust me, a lot of times on this show, we're going to be having conversations that's above the casual level, just to let you know. So, obviously, always ask questions for clarification. Always, always look it up. If we're talking about a particular person, Darvin Ham is a former NBA player. There's a lot of good details on him. He was shot in the head. Like, there's a lot of different things about them. So when we're talking about Darvin Ham, that's who we're talking about. For those of you that don't know who we're talking about.
Oh yeah, definitely. Google's a great resource.
I'm gonna add. So no, I'm never gonna be advocating for anyone to lose their job. Get your money, stay employed. Like legit. But what does need to happen is that and I gave up this solution for Detroit when I was talking to one of my friends the other week. But this same solution for the Lakers. We need to figure out what former NBA player. Jason Kidd is the perfect example, but Jason Kidd would not take this opportunity. But you need a former player, someone who is in the ear of LeBron, someone who's in the ear of Anthony Davis, someone in the ear of Rich Paul. Rich Paul is their agent, by the way. And LeBron's one of LeBron's best friends. You need someone that's part of that Clutch Sports crew to come in and be that assistant coach. Be like, hey, Darvin, I don't think this is gonna work for LeBron and AD. Because at the end of the day, AD and LeBron have to be at their best in order for them to win. LeBron should not be playing point guard. I'm sorry. Darvin Ham has forgotten more basketball than either of us will ever know combined. But you can't play LeBron at point guard. He is 39 years old.
Right. I've been saying that for years. He needs to be more off the ball. And honestly, don't get me wrong, he can still be a secondary ball handler, but he should not be taking the ball up the court every single time.
And here's the problem. Like I'm gonna explain my 5 positions of basketball, which now is really 4. You need to have Hold on 1 second. I got like a notification. Okay, we're good. So and we're gonna wrap up here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But the key thing that we have to do if we're the Lakers is get someone who can be a ball handler, someone who can initiate the offense, not named LeBron. That's the key thing for the Lakers.
I think you have it, but are they going to use it? I think you got to put the ball in D'Angelo Russell's hands a little more.
Yeah.
I've seen some where they've put the ball in Austin Reeves' hands more, and he played with the minutes he's given. He plays well.
None of them cats are point guard or
D'Lo is.
he ain't. He's not. He a shooting guard. He a wing. He what I mean by point guards, meaning by ball handlers, I mean a Luka Doncic. I mean a James Harden. I mean a Rajon Rondo, Chris Paul. He ain't none of them. He's more like a Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is not a point guard. Anywhere near it. Like he a ball handler. Like you know, what's his name? D'Angelo Russell needs to be off the ball. He don't make the best decisions. I mean, we're gonna look at his stats real quick because it's important to break this down. D'Angelo Russell is averaging 15 a game. He's averaging 6 assists, which is still pretty good. And he's only averaging 2 turnovers a game. So it's not bad on that efficiency. But like, I think that he can get others involved, but putting him in control of the offense, I don't think is the best thing.
Yeah, but so we shall see what moves they make. They still need to make a move like like the Warriors.
Right. So I'm gonna give you one guess what number 3 was.
It's the Pacers. Come on, bro.
It's the Pacers. There we go. So obviously the Indiana Pacers was the losers to the end season tournament to the Lakers. But unlike these other two teams we're talking about, they are 20-15. They're 4-1 against the dominant Milwaukee Bucks. And they actually have a winning record on the road and at home, and they are led by just wonderful, wonderful players. I'm going to get to the best player last, but one wonderful player that they're led by is Miles Turner, 18 a game, and he's averaging 7 rebounds per and 2 blocks. And he is healthy enough to be one of those key things. Another key player that is on the team, and I want to mention that like he kind of came out of nowhere. His name is Aaron Nesmith. He is leading the team in blocks, and he's averaging 12 a game, which I would have never expected out of the player. Obviously, you have all these other players that are around. He's a role player himself, but like I mentioned him because he's leveled his game up higher than anyone else on that roster. And then most importantly, the all star, the MVP candidate, the front runner for I think most improved player of the year, 24, 13 assists per game, Tyrese Halliburton. Um, just a beautiful season so far, and he has shown he belongs with the big dogs. And I think Sacramento feel like they made a mistake, but also Sabonis is also getting triple doubles and everything. So maybe it's not a mistake, but I just think that Halliburton is at a higher level than Sabonis. So, what is your take on the Pacers this season so far?
I just want to give you a stat to your point about Halliburton. It was like the past 5 or 6 games, 84 assists, like four or 5 turnovers.
Wow. I mean, Halliburton. I mean, I'm gonna cross check that. So the last 5 games, he has had. Well, before that game against Boston,
5 or 6, yeah.
Before that game against Boston, he had 46 plus 18, whatever that number is.
64.
He had 64 to 6 turnovers. Boston, he didn't play well, but it's very interesting. And then against Chicago, he had no turnovers and 20 assists. So he had 84 turnovers or 84 assists to 6 turnovers
in 5 games.
In 5 games, exactly. So like, I mean, Boston he struggled a little bit, and Boston put that belt to ass. But we'll stay positive here.
I mean, Boston's like, to their credit, they're the best team in the NBA right now. So it's like I understand that, but it's like Pacers playing well. Will definitely be a playoff team. I mean, Halliburton should be an All-Star game starter and a definite MVP candidate because out, outside of him, the only, of course you're going to talk about Jokic. Of course you're going to talk about Embiid. I mean, the three main ones that you would talk about is him. You talk about Luka Doncic, and you talk about Shea.
Right. I mean, and that's the truth, as this is speaking the truth in sports. So we're going to go on to our last sequence of segments as we put an end to this show. Um, I want to get before we get to the feel good moments. I want to get to a women's moment. We're going to have the women's moment of the week, and this is the truth. Indiana women's basketball went 15 of 15 from the field on their belt to ass effort against the Michigan Wolverines. Name a player on Michigan because I sure can't either. I could name an old player on Michigan, but not a current player. But Indiana, I mean, you got Sydney Parrish, she hit 3 threes in the first quarter. Sarah Scalia hit 3 threes in the first quarter. Chloe Moore-Nail scored a few, as well as Yarson Garson. She killed it. And then the All-American superstar Mackenzie Holmes. That's their starting five for Indiana. So shout out to them. They're also undefeated in college, just like Indiana State Sycamores men's basketball. Let's not talk about the women's team and down there in Terre Haute. So that is the women's moment of the week. Shout out to Indiana for a terrific season so far. And hopefully they can get back to the level of being a number one seed in the NCAA tournament this year. But yeah, that's my women's moment of the week.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Caitlin Clark because the IU women's team plays Iowa coming up this week.
Yep, exactly. And it's going to be a very interesting battle when they play. I mean, a very, very extreme environment. And last time they played, we're talking about overtime. We're talking about buzzer beaters. We're talking about unbelievable shot in the Big Ten tournament by Caitlin Clark. I mean, it just crushed the souls of Indiana basketball. And that's just something to keep in mind as we move forward. And it's something that is very important for us. So that's something that's key in mind too. So we always end within this truth, speaking the truth in sports with our feel good moment of the week. I think that it is important to talk about it. And I have my moment, but I'm going to have Sean go first.
So, and we've been talking about a lot of women's sports this episode, but there was something that I saw that was very interesting. So there's a brand new women's hockey league called the Professional Women's Hockey League that has 6 teams, 3 teams in Canada, 3 in the States.
Okay.
But they just had their second game and set an attendance record for a women's hockey game with 13,316.
That's excellent.
Because sports in America, of course, football's king, followed by basketball, and then you have baseball, and then hockey and soccer somewhere beneath that. But that for only your second game ever for a women's hockey game, much less a men's hockey game, you have over 13,000. That's huge.
Yeah. That's legit. And I'm excited for the Women's Hockey League. I heard about the league expanding and volleyball's expanding. Like all these women's sports are expanding. So I'm excited about women being able to play sports at a much higher level. Now that pay can get a little bit more equal, in my opinion. That'll be great. But it's moving in the right direction.
Oh, I completely agree.
So my moment. Now, I have a sport that I watch that Sean doesn't watch, and we're talking about the world of boxing. Big boxing fan. Last night on January 6th on the Zone, um, Golden Boy Promotions put on boxing card that had several fights, and there was an interim championship matchup at the 140-pound division, which was the light welterweight, junior welterweight slash super lightweight division. And there's this 40-year-old named Ishmael Barroso who knocked out O'Hara Davis from Britain in the first round. Not, cleaned him out twice. He got up. He was not responding to the ref. They waved it off. And, he's 40 years old and he was robbed in a fight against Rolly Romero, where Rolly Romero threw like 4 punches at him, landed one, and Tony Weeks, a terrible referee, stopped the fight. So it was good for Ismael Barroso at 40 years old to come back to avenge his loss to Rolly, to now become the mandatory for the rematch against Rolly to give him back the medicine that he deserves. So that's going to be an interesting fight to see in 2024. But shout out to Ishmael Barroso, 40 years old, getting a world title shot once again. He'll be 41 when he has that fight, and it's pretty cool that old dude out here still getting it, because he looked like he's 60. And the jokes on the internet are undefeated. But shout out to him.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anytime you see a fighter fight in their 40s, not only compete for championships, that's big. So good for him. Hopefully he wins it, and you'll be a world champion.
Yeah, I'm hoping too, because that 140-pound division is a very, very strong division. But for Sean and for me, this was speaking the truth in sports, discussing sport topics in correlation to everyday life, focusing on an audience who wants a deeper convo but don't need the X's and O's. This is Tremaine. We have Sean. We'll be back next week, probably live from Indianapolis. See you all soon. Like and share, subscribe. Just let people know about this. If you have topics you want to talk to us about, let us know, and we'll be back next time. See ya.
See you.